Hi, my name is Kemafrik. You're welcome to Kemafrik. If you're new here or you're yet to subscribe, please consider subscribing to this channel. I upload pattern drafting and sewing videos every week. In this video, I'll be teaching you how to draft an off-shoulder bodice and sleeve pattern. Please sit back and enjoy. I want to put you through how I create my off-shoulder outfit. So there's a loud music going on downstairs. I just hope this doesn't disturb us too much and it actually sounds pleasant to you and not like a noise. But I'm just so determined today to do this. I'm not going to postpone it, no. So if you have not watched the basic bodice block creation, please watch it before you come back here because we'll be starting from that point. I'm not going to go over creation of basic bodice block. Watch the video and you will understand how we arrive here. And I think the last part I missed here is creating my side dart and connecting it to the bust point. So I won't create a visible line yet. Let's just leave this dot as our side dart for now because I may make a little modification. I don't want my pattern looking rough. So let's do this. For an off shoulder, I struggled with making off shoulder for quite a while before I arrived at something that worked for me almost all the time. So you have to determine how low you want your shoulder to go. That's your new neckline, the neckline for your off shoulder. So how low can you take? If you want it a little bit high, don't go anywhere below 4 inches. Don't go above 4 inches. Okay. So if you are the type that like your off shoulder high, I won't advise you go 3 inches. That's just like a regular neckline and it may not fit properly. So no matter how high you want your off shoulder, make it at least 4 inches below the top of your pattern. Okay, or if you want it averagely low, so you can make it like 6 inches lower from the top of your pattern. You measure 6 inches down. So if you are the type that don't mind exposing some cleavage, you can go as low as 7-8 inches and that will be really low. Okay, so right now we'll be creating this off shoulder and I think for this person she'll be comfortable with somewhere between 4 and 6. So let's go with 5 inches. Let's go with 5 inches. So I'm going to mark 5 inches from the top of my pattern. 5 inches, 5 inches. So don't mind my extra short ruler. Okay, so this is how low we're going to take off from the basic bodice. Okay, so before we move on, we're going to contour this part of our pattern. So we want to create a bustier for our off shoulder. Okay, so I'll be working on, okay, before I do that, this is the chest line, this is the bust line. That's when you measure from your shoulder to the most prominent part of your bust. That's the bust point. So that line there is the bust line. That's the bust line, and this is the under bust line, which is from your shoulder, the vertical measurement from your shoulder to immediately under the bust. And this is the waistline, which is our front half length. Recall from the basic bodice blog that the back half length is shorter than the front half length. And for this particular person, how do you get that? Actually, you have to measure your client. You have to measure your client. I also have a video on how you can take accurate body measurement. So the back half length is usually a little bit shorter than the front, and that's because of the protrusion of the bust. So for my client, hers is 2 inches shorter than the front. So this side dart is going to make up for that because we're going to either cut this out, take it in, or transfer it. And at the end of the day, we have here closed. Then this side of our front bodies become equal to the side of our back bodies, and then we can join together without any issue at all. So let's go ahead and make a contour on our underbust and our bust line. So we have half inches here already. This is our dart line, okay? That's the bust span divided by 2. That's how I get to locate this point. Here too, you take your bust span divided by 2 and locate this point. Please just watch the tutorial on busybodies blog, and you understand this completely. So on the dart line, I'll come towards the left and take half an inch, and then towards the right, I'll be taking 1.5 inch. And I'll do exactly same here because I won't be making use of my underbust circumference. So I'm just going to tighten here and we'll be fine. So I'm taking 1.5 inch to this side. So I've taken this dart leg here was 1 inch wide, but now we have a 2 inches wide dart leg. So before I got to this point, when I was measuring my waist circumference here, waist circumference divided by 4, I already added this 1 inch dart, but because I'm expanding the dart here, I'm going to take an extra 1 inch and mark here. Okay, so we have to make up for whatever we're taking out from our dart in order not to create a deficit. So the next thing we'll be doing now is to work on the upper part. So you're just going to take your ruler, find the midpoint of your shoulder. Okay, can I get that with this ruler? Okay, mine is 5 inches and I'm going to mark 2.5 inch. Okay, sincerely, I don't always use the midpoint. I prefer to even go a little bit towards the side, but I won't be making use of this line. That will just make your cup appear curvy here. I don't know if you've seen that kind of outfit before. It does not look pretty. So I have 2.5 inches at the midpoint here, but because I don't want that, okay, it's just left to you. All right, I'm just working with what works for me. So I'll be marking half inch to the side, and I'll join this dot to my bust point. Okay, so I've attached this to my bust point, and the next thing I'll be doing now is to tighten this part a little bit. So by 1 inch, I'll be doing 1 inch to both sides, half inch to both sides of this new dart line. So half inch to both sides. So I'm taking 1 inch out of this. I have to replace it back on my armhole. So just ignore this curve for now, okay? Ignore this curve for now. So let's assume this is armhole curve, our armhole line. So I'll be adding 1 inch to that. Okay, so the next thing you have to determine is whether you want a straight, you want your center front to be straight, or you want to create what is it called again? A sweetheart neckline. Okay, so for this we'll be creating a sweetheart neckline. Once again, you have to determine how much depth you want at the center front. You can go as low as 2 inches, or you can go 1 inch, depending on how deep you want it to be. Okay, let's look at this together. So from this line here, I'll be taking let's say 2 inches down. So I'll be taking 2 inches down. I'll be taking 2 inches down, and now I'm going to create a curve connecting this part to arm here. You may first make use of a pencil so that you don't have a rough pattern like mine. So this part also, you're free to determine how you want it to look. Probably you want it curving downward this way, or you don't really want to expose so much, and you can go with this straight line. Okay, I think I'll just make do with this. I'll go with this straight line this way, or you can make it higher. You see some off shoulder making a sharp V this way. Okay, but we'll work with this in this case. So we have to tighten here. We have taken 1/2 inch to both sides of this shoulder dart. So let me just mark that out. Okay, and we've replaced it in here. Okay, so we have a new armhole curve here, sort of. Okay, but before you draw any other thing, at this line here, you have to take a little bit out of it, and that's so that you don't have a sagging armhole, you know, because it's an off shoulder. You want it properly fitted and well held up together. So you need your real chest width. You need your real chest width here. So if you can measure your chest, just go ahead and measure. Then you take whatever you measure from here to here and mark out the excess. Okay. Another thing you can do is to take at least 2 inches, or sometimes 1 inch. Actually, you can take 1 inch, and that will give you a somewhat, that if you take 1 inch from here, by the time you tighten here and this part shifts here, so that will give you a somewhat straight kind of off shoulder with the sleeve almost parallel to this line. You know, there are some off shoulders that the sleeve comes a little bit higher towards this side. Okay, that's because you have taken so much from this side. So for an elderly person, for instance, that comes to me and say, okay, I don't want my off shoulder to actually look like an off shoulder and all that, what I do is I take at least 3 inches from this line before creating the new armhole. So you can mark 3 inches for such an individual. Take 3 inches, and then you curve it this way. By the time you attach your sleeve, it's going to go this way. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, but for this person, I'll be going in by 2 inches. So my work already appears so rough, and that's because I actually want you to understand properly. And I don't just want you to understand this, I want you to be able to do whatever you want to do with an off shoulder. Okay, so if, for instance, you're working with an elderly person and you want that kind of slanted sleeve, this is what you do. Take at least 3 inches. You can even go more in some cases. Okay, but I won't advise you go above 4. You may not actually have 4 before you get to this line here, and you don't want to tamper with this. Okay, for my clients now, I'll be taking 2 inches. So 2 inches this way. So from this line, not from this armhole. Remember, we replaced what we have here. We replaced it here, and that's why we have this. And we actually didn't make use of this. We are making use of this line, so we took 2 inches. So if you were measuring from here, probably would have taken 1.5 inches, because this is 1 inch inward from here. I just hope you understand what I'm saying, really. Okay, so now I'm going to create a slant towards the chest line for my armhole after taking 2 inches in on a new line here. So you can just make it straight or slightly curvy. Okay, so I've created a slight curve here. So this is what we're working with. We'll be fine. So, but before I cut, oh sorry, there's a part I'm missing out here. I'm yet to connect And when you are connecting this line, please stop 1 inch above your bust point. Okay, can't believe I almost missed that. Come 1 inch above the bust point. Don't connect it to the bust point so that you can easily create a smooth curve along here. So also this new dart legs we have here, we'll have to use our curve with the curvy part towards the bust point, and we create this curve. So that way we have tightened on the busts and bust. Okay, yes, I think we are fine now. We're good to go. So now let's work on the back. We'll be doing something similar to what we did at the front. So to what we did at the front here, we're going to take we made use of 5 inches, so I'll mark 5 inches and connect the dots together to create a straight line. Okay, and we took in 2 inches here. Remember, the reason why we started marking from this side was because of this dart, but in this case we don't have that kind of dart, so you can just go ahead and mark your 2 inches and create your and create your slanted line here, slanted armhole for the off shoulder. So, and another thing I really love to do on most of my outfits is to tighten the waistline towards the zip allowance here. So you can take 0.75 inch, or I usually make use of half an inch. So I come in by half an inch. So we're going to reduce that. So I'm going to start from this my line. You can start from anywhere from the level of this chest line. You can take in this. Some people can actually start from the top of the pattern this way. Okay, but this is what I'll be doing, creating this slant. So this means we have a new zip allowance here. So that way, by the time you fix a zip, you won't have a bulge at the back. Okay, so because we have taken in half an inch here, you have to replace it on this side, so you won't have a deficit. Okay, so we are done with the back. We're done with the back. So it's as easy as this, really. It's as easy as this. There's no complicated story to it. This is what I do whenever I'm making an off shoulder, and it works in most cases. Before you start cutting, please measure here to here. So mine is about 7 inches. Remember, this is not part of our outfit because we'll be cutting it out. So I actually have 6 inches. I want to be sure I have the same thing here. So 6 inches, because we're going to be using that when we are creating our off shoulder sleeve. Also, you need to know the distance between this line and your chest line. We'll also be making use of that when we are creating our sleeve. So here we have 3.5 inches. Okay, before we cut, let me just go ahead and create an off shoulder sleeve. Okay, so now we'll be making our off shoulder sleeve pattern, and this is the top of our paper. We'll be starting our measurement from this line here, and this part should be on fold when you're cutting on fabric. Now let's look at our off shoulder bodice here. Like I said earlier, you measure the distance between this new neckline here and the chest line, and ours was 3.5 inches. So we're going to create a line from here that will be 3.5 inches long. Mark your 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches. Okay, so this place, that's where we'll be marking out our bicep circumference. So you need to know your bicep circumference around the upper part of your arm, your elbow circumference, and your wrist circumference, depending on how long you want your sleeve to be. Okay, so the next thing we'll be using now, also you need to measure round shoulder. So you're going to place the tape around your subject or client shoulder. Okay, just go round it on the upper part of your shoulder and measure that. So once you get that, you're going to subtract what you have here. You know, these are new neckline and it starts here. So when I measure this, I have about 7 inches, but then this 1 inch is not part of it, so we have 6 inches. A more direct way to measure this is to just use the back, since there's no dart on the upper part. So you have 6 inches. You have 6 inches for one side of the back. That means you have 12 inches when you include the other side of the dart. So 12 inches for the front, 12 inches for the back. For instance, in this case, my client's round shoulder circumference is 43 inches. So I'll be subtracting. Okay, first I'm going to add this 2 together, multiply by 2. That's this multiplied by 2 and this multiply by 2. So we have 12 here and we have 12 here, so we have 24 inches. Okay, so I'll subtract 24 inches from the round shoulder circumference, and that will give us I think 19 inches. So 19 inches now, I will divide it by 4 to get each side of my sleeve. Okay, so when I divide 19 by 4, I have 4.75. So I'm going to mark 4.75 here. Sorry, on the upper line here. So 4.75. 4.75. And then I will now consider my round sleeve, that's at the upper part of the arm, which is the bicep circumference. So divide that bicep circumference by 2 rather, because we were working for one sleeve here. So you divide it by 2 because this part is on fold. So okay, for my client, our bicep circumference is 13 inches actually. So when you divide 30 inches by 2, you get 6.5. I'll just mark 6.5 here, and you create a curve this way. If you're working with a long sleeve, remember we took out 5 inches from the top, so you can go ahead and take 5 inches this way. That starts this line at 5 inches. So I mark your elbow, the length of your elbow here. I think for my client that's 13 inches. So at 13 inches, and if you're making a long sleeve, you go ahead and mark for her it's 22 inches. So you may need to create that at another point so that you can draw your full length sleeve. So 13 inches and 22 inches. So this line marks where our elbow will be. Okay, so now I'm going to input my elbow circumference. Hers is 12 inches. When I divide 12 by 2, I have 6. Be sure you have taken this part very well, because you don't want your, or you may just put an additional ½ inch ease here so that the elbow won't be too tight and your client can fold properly. Okay, so this other part here has is 8.5, which is 4.25. So I'll just connect okay. So now we have our sleeve. Please smoothing out any bad looking side here. I have this, so just smoothing it out this way. Okay, so now we have our off shoulder sleeve, and you can go ahead and add your allowances. Here you add ½ inch. Okay, at the side here you can add ½ inch, and then you add 1 inch on the side for joining. So this part, if you're working with a lace, for example, you don't need to add another allowance here, because most laces have a very clean border. That's if you want to make use of the border. Else you need to add extra sewing allowance here if you plan on folding the edge of your off shoulder. Also, on your bodice, I usually do this when I place some fabric, so but you can add your allowances before cutting. So on this part, you add half an inch sewing allowance. So that's the part you sew in. Also be careful and be sure you're sewing in all your allowance when you're sewing. For instance, it's not advisable, but if you add, let's say, 1/4 of an inch allowance, by the time you're sewing, you should sew in 1/4 of an inch so that you have exactly the right measurement. So at the side here, I'll be adding 1 inch sewing allowance. Before then, because we're going to fold in this part, find the midline of this. Okay, so you want to kind of smoothing this out. I've extended it by about 1 inch. So this is the part I'll be cutting out. So when I'm adding my allowance also, I'll put that into consideration before I come back to cutting the 1 inch. And on this lower part, we have a 1/2 inch. And please watch me cut and transfer. So let me just cut out my allowance now so that you can see, get how to do it properly. So don't worry about this yet. So this is what we'll also be doing for the back, putting 1 inch at the side and 1/2 inch on the armhole, the top, and the bottom. Okay, there's one last modification I usually do here. I make my back a little bit lower than the front. So I come in here by about 1 inch and create a curve. Okay. So that just helps the back sit properly. So when I'm cutting, I'm going to add 1/2 inch on that part. So now we have our okay, we have off shoulder pattern here, and I need to cut out this panel, separate the panels. This is actually part of this. So when you're cutting, ensure you don't have sharp edges, especially when you're cutting on your fabric. So now I'm cutting on paper. If at all there's any sharp edge, I still have a chance to remove it when I'm cutting my fabric. Okay, so this is what we'll be working with, and we'll be transferring this side dart to this shoulder dart by folding in. This is our bust line, remember. So I want to fold here in and fold the center of my dart over. Okay, so you're going to fold in such a way that you're not folding the bust point. Okay, you're only folding the other part and covering up the entire 2 inch dart. So that way the side of your front becomes equal to what you have at the back. So you need to use a tape to hold this down so that it doesn't shift when you're sewing. It doesn't shift when you're cutting on fabric, or you don't mistakenly open it up again. Now I've held mine down with a tape. So now let's cut this back together. Remember I told you you'll be adding 1 inch sewing allowance on the side, 1/2 inch at the armhole, our new lovely armhole, at the new